One of the guidelines I follow when I do this production is that this is not a topical show. There's a lot of people who do weekend reviews and they do it much better than I possibly could, and because of the nature of how I film, literally when I get around to covering something, it is so last week. Do kids even say that anymore? Thing is though, I don't feel bad about using current events to talk about different types of topics. So with that in mind, I present to you H1Z1. A quick overview. H1Z1 is a bandwagon zombie survival game distributed by Sony Online, and typical of Sony releases, it had a lot of hype leading up to the open alpha. A lot of hype. So its early access launch was met with a lot of anticipation, and honestly, I think we should all know better by now. The biggest complaint wasn't that the game didn't work on launch, and I guess we kind of expect that by now. No, the big problem was that the game was being perceived as pay to win. Stop! Once again, I need to define this term because everybody has a different definition of what they're talking about. So, for the sake of this video, pay to win is going to refer to spending actual real-world money to gain an immediate advantage over another player playing the same game who's not spending real-world money. We're not talking about convenience items, we're not talking about cosmetic items, we're not talking about boosters, we're talking about an immediate damage or whatever advantage against other players. Capiche? Capiche. Continue. According to their system, this game is supposed to be free to play, but early access is costing $20 minimum and goes up to $40 for a premium bundle. And what's in that bundle? Well, 25 event tickets, which get you access to special events, 6 crates and 4 crate keys, an aviator hat recipe, which unless you're going to eat it Donner Party style, it needs to be renamed, and 3 airdrop tickets. The airdrop tickets are really what caused the big deal, and to explain why, I need to show you this. This is a pre-launch livestream video put out by the people at H1Z1. The one on the right is a YouTube LPer who's, well, infinitely more popular than me, but the one on the left is Adam Clegg, the senior game designer behind H1Z1. This stream was posted on YouTube on January 12, 2015, with the game released on January 15th.
You can't buy ammo,
right?
You can't buy guns,
right?
You can't get them out of a crate.
Right.
There's zero way. You have to find them in the world.
Right.
So,
okay.
Now fast forward to the 15th when early access opened up, and not shockingly, like every other game in the last 3 years or so, it barely worked. That was assuming you didn't get them online at all. But what really got the players was that the airdrops contained weapons and ammunition, and that's something that they promised would not happen. Sony at first went on the offense by yelling at players, "It's right there, you could have read it yourselves!" You know, specifically on the What You Can Expect webpage on the H1Z1 site under number 8. Then the attempted shot of, well, if you don't like it, then don't play it, but give it a chance first. I don't even know how that's supposed to work. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because the money had already been spent based on the promise, and the months of promises that the game would not have pay-to-win elements in it. Now, if you don't believe me, here's a Reddit comment made by John Smedley, the president of Sony Online Entertainment, or at least someone writing on his behalf, because I genuinely don't believe that he really interacts with us dirty gamers unfiltered. Again, the promise was that they would not sell guns and ammo, and they did it anyway. So, summing up, they did what every good company does in this modern era. They denied all wrongdoing, and then they attacked their customer base. When it became obvious that this was going to blow up in their faces and there was really nothing they could do, they did the one thing that they could possibly do to try to save face, in the most backhanded way possible. They offered a refund. Yeah, they really did this, in probably the most smug way possible, too. I read his Twitter post as like reading, "Fine, if you're such a wuss, you can ask for a refund, or you could just man up." What gets me is that he was smug even after he had posted that 0.5% of people asked for a refund, and this is assuming they were all sitting on Reddit, just ready to answer the call whenever he said something. So that number is going to be pretty low compared to the people who were not happy. The only reason most people kind of knew about it was that every major publication ran with the story. You'll notice, however, that Sony admits no fault nor apology, simply a, quote, no questions asked refund, which is probably the most slap-to-the-face way to do it ever. A little bit of transparency here. I have a history with Sony Online Entertainment and a couple of their staffers for things like lack of accountability and things like that, but I'm going to save that one for another show. No, Mr. Stoon, I have not forgotten. Let's focus on H1Z1 right now. So what's the big deal? Every free-to-play title needs to make money, and supplies are probably the best way that you can do it. Actually, that's the problem. It seems like every game is including a cash shop lately, and most of the time they're just selling cosmetic or convenience items. You know, XP boosters, faction ref boosters, clothing, pretty horsies, you know, that kind of thing. But some MMOs go a step further, and they just outright sell you power for money, and it's actually pretty lucrative. I mean, some people bought a $100 virtual car in the past. And there's also that $16,000 saber, but I think that might have just been cosmetic, I'm not sure. Now, for Sony Online, this isn't anything new. Let's go to DCUO, it's a good example, and there's probably what they were modeling H1Z1 after. You can play for free with some pretty brutal in-game restrictions, or you can pay a small amount of money to loosen them somewhat. You know, you can buy DLC and content within them, new movement powers, and most importantly to this discussion, keys to Prometheum lockboxes. Now I want to emphasize these because H1Z1 has kind of a similar thanks for playing prize boxes that randomly drop. In DCUO, if you're a subscription member, you can open up all the lockboxes you want, and if not, you have to buy keys to open them, and these keys cost $2.50 a key. You can get exclusive style items or so-called rare base items from them now, but if you go back in time, they used to have armor items in them sometimes. If you're a WoW player, you're familiar with heirloom items, that's what these basically were. You can grind an account, superior armor to anything you could get at low level. Now in Game Update 26 they ditched them completely, but some of us still have them tucked away on alts.
I bring this up because no one ever complained about the armor in the lockboxes. Well, if they did, I never heard it. So what's the difference between having the armor in these lockboxes and having ammunition in these supply crates? Well, number one, the armor wasn't game-breaking, and number two, the promise.
The armor that you got out of Prometheum lockboxes was relatively weak in the large scale of things. It got you to end content faster, which made leveling alts easier, so yeah, it was convenience, not pay to win. This is unlike guns, ammo, and supplies in H1Z1. Now consider that that game is mostly centered around scavenging, looting, and survival, and you're fighting every other person on the server for these same supplies, and there's only a finite number of these supplies you can only get in specific locations. They even mentioned that in the pre-release promo video.
So where would I find ammo other than the police station?
So zombies sometimes have ammo on them,
Okay.
which is a incentive to actually want to kill the zombies.
Right.
Sometimes you can find them in houses. There's ammo in houses. There's ammo in the police station. There's multiple levels of this police station, so
Okay.
you can actually search the other floors, and maybe you'll find some ammo.
Translation number 2. You're paying Sony Online real-world money to buy virtual goods that are going to be very difficult to get in the game otherwise and are vital to gameplay. Now, I watched a lot of the live streamers. Some of them were being endorsed to play this game in one way or another, and they were defending these airdrops by saying, oh, well, there's no guarantee you're going to get what's in the airdrop. Let's talk about that.
John Smedley, president of Sony Online Entertainment. Now, he took to Reddit to defend his airdrops, and he claims that they're balanced because, well, there's no guarantee you're going to get the airdrop he called in. You see, when it lands, it mystically summons zombies, and it's obvious because the plane flies overhead, makes a lot of noise, green smoke everywhere, and players are going to converge on it and try to kill you, and it's going to become like a world event, and it's going to be a bloodbath, and everybody's going to have a lot of fun trying to kill each other for these supplies. Okay, first of all, the War Z already tried this kind of thing, and it failed. You could buy gear in the War Z cash shop, and if you died, well, sucks to be you, you lost it. They claimed they did this to make people play more cautiously, but in reality, what was happening is people would just camp known newbie spawn areas, and they would just kill noobs to get all that paid money gear. You know that a game is bad when Steam pulls it for player complaints, and the game has to completely rebrand itself? I'm just saying. Now second, essentially this is dangerously close to a gambling mentality. You're paying money to pull the slot machine and hope that you get lucky. You can increase your odds by doing the drop in a remote location, or, you know, being armed to the teeth already, but it's still a gamble that you're even going to get to it, let alone that's going to have the supplies that you need, so odds are you're going to buy another airdrop. Remember all that Skinnerbox stuff I talked about some months ago? This is why it's dangerous.
And third of all, okay, this is a huge leap of faith from both of us on this one, so humor me for just a moment, but this could lead to legal problems. No, I'm not kidding. Hear me out.
Lawsuits over virtual property is not anything new. Second Life, Google, Amazon, they've all been taken to court over virtual goods bought with real-world money. The moment that you start spending real-world money, stuff gets complicated. So let's go with the H1Z1 apologetic line that there's no guarantee that you're going to get what you paid for, so it's not pay to win. You could get killed, someone might get closer, you might get disconnected, which obviously never happens in Sony Online products, you know, whatever. Okay, by that analogy, you should be okay with me stealing food from you at the drive-thru at the local McRestaurant. I mean, you paid them for the food, and as they're handing the bag over, I grab it and run. And hey, it's your fault for not being fast enough, right? And before you start making the argument of, well, that's different, well, is it? You bought something, I took it from you before it got into your hands, well, it sucks to be you, right? That would not work in the real world, and yet we let it slide in the virtual world. Or even more fun, let's say I killed you in-game and then just took what you bought. Is that theft or virtual assault? If someone is a known loot ninja, can they be hauled off to prison for theft if they've stolen more than X dollars worth of goods? Again, real money is being spent, so taking items could be akin to theft.
I'll be the first to admit that's probably never going to happen, but you get enough angry people together in this modern legal system and anything is possible. Do I have to remind you that there's currently somebody awaiting trial over a JK statement they made on a League of Legends Facebook post? They're still going forward with that. I'm keeping tabs on it.
The point is that it's only a matter of time, in my opinion. Now, you're probably going to scoff and say, well, real gamers would take it in stride, but I'd say you're suffering from a version of Stockholm Syndrome. But whatever, my point stands. Once money exchanges hands, stuff happens you might not be comfortable thinking about. But let's take a step back here. I really think they dropped the ball with H1Z1. I kind of found it funny that Smedley complained on Reddit that dredging up an 8-month-old post and holding him to it was unfair. I'd buy that, except that they said the same thing less than a week before launch. And at no time did anyone involved actually say, yeah, we made a mistake. What I think happened was Sony Online Entertainment, and not for the first time, mind you, betrayed our trust. Betrayal is a strong word here, but I'm using it for lack of a better one. They promised all the way up to launch that the game would not sell rare game-breaking supplies, and in the end, they did. That's why there's a backlash. There's something I keep on hearing in this that the internet never forgets and never forgives. If Smedley thinks it's unfair to dredge up an 8-month-old post, just wait until this is slapped in his face a few years or so down the line when they do it again.
And rest assured, they'll do it again. Sony, EA, Ubisoft, Activision, all these game companies lie to us. And every time they do, we always act surprised, like, oh my gosh, we never saw this one coming. And then when they put out the next game and start the hype going for that, we keep on biting on the bait and saying, no, this one's going to be different, this one's going to be legit. I think that says something more about us than it does about the game companies.